Welcome to the Growth Bridge. I am Ivo-Castillo, your host here in Miami. This podcast is for entrepreneurs and leaders with strong ties to Latin America who want to understand how Anglo founders think about growth, leadership, and decision making, and how they apply their mindset to your business. This is episode 13, and today I'm excited to have Shawn Khorrami. He is the founder for E-Playbooks. Hello, Shawn. How are you?
Hi, how you doing, Ivo?
I'm great. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, I'm gonna start with my first question, and is can you share a bit about your background, how you start, and what is E-Playbook?
Sure. Those are a lot. That's a lot of stuff there, but I'll try to get through all of it pretty quickly. Okay. So I'll just sum up, just generally me. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've started more than a dozen businesses from the ground up, with me as employee one, and grown them to 8, 9-figure businesses. Okay. I have, in terms of education, I have degrees in mathematics, computer science, economics. I have a law degree and substantial formal education in marketing, sales, and accounting. Kind of the backbone of how you run a business. You mentioned how I started. I started quite by accident. One was, let me back up I'm going to back up a lot. I always thought I was going to run my own company. Okay. And that was a lot because when I was a little kid, as long as I have memories, my dad had his own company. We were in Iran, so we're immigrants. I was born in another country. He had his own company. So I never really knew anything else but owning your own company. So I always thought, oh, okay, I'm gonna have my own company. That's what everyone does. That's what I knew as a 5-year-old or something. And specifically, I wanted to have a construction business because that's what his business was. And in a developing country like in Iran, construction was a very good business to be in. So he did very well with that. But that was the way I thought. I thought it'd be my company. I thought it would be construction. And then we moved to the U.S. We had to move to the U.S. because of the Iranian Revolution. My father had lost everything, had to restart everything, and he was not so good at it for kind of understandable reasons. And maybe that sort of resonates with some of your audience, right? We're talking to people who are from other countries. They're born in other countries, used to a system of the way that the country's economy, the politics work, and all of that. And then suddenly you're put into a different country with an entirely different economy, an entirely different culture and politics. And that's what sort of my dad experienced moving over here as a 40-some-year-old guy, having to start over. So a lot of it did not work out the same way with him. The same things that work in Iran did not necessarily translate to the U.S. So he did get his hands on a couple of small income properties, which he was terrible at managing, again, because his mindset was the way that you would do it in Iran versus the way you do it here with the laws of the U.S. And so, wanting to help my dad, I became an entrepreneur quite by accident, even though it was always purposeful that I wanted to be one. But when I started, it was quite by accident. It was just trying to help my dad. And what I wanted to do is help him actually manage these small income properties. So at the time, what had happened was personal computers, and I'm dating myself, personal computers were just getting into homes. I had a personal computer, and I devised a small database program to help manage the properties. And from that, I got into other properties that his friends, for example, had. And, that sort of grew from there to a little business that I had. And that was the first time that I started actually doing business and running any sort of a business in my teens. And then after that, I went to college and I started other things, and we went on from there.
That's That's very inspiring story. You know, uh,
It may be relevant to the audience. Again,
no, you know,
speaking to
it's
people from other
but
countries.
you think that I mean, look, I'm talked to a lot of people, entrepreneurs and businesses from anywhere, but you know what have all have in common is that no matter what time in the period you in your life, but it's always almost them has the same thing is that when they are young age, they have something in their mind that tell them that I want to have a business. It's I don't know. It's really it's like
Yeah.
everybody's me. It's something that I had in my mind all the time. Of course, the background, the story, the way they from they are the culture, everything changed. Every person is a different story. But what is interesting to me or surprised me is that each of one of us like knew in the bottom of their heart or somewhere somehow when they were kids, when they were young, when they were adolescents, they like to have something on their own.
Yeah, and it's not uncommon that people who start businesses go back to a story way back when where they said, I always wanted to do this, right? You hear that quite a bit. And for whatever reason. And by the way, there's the other way too, where people say, I'm good having a job somewhere. I like the stability of just getting a paycheck. I don't like the instability of having to deal with a business. There's no wrong or right.
Yes.
It's just different ways of living, different ways of thinking, and both are correct ways of thinking. It's just what fits you and fits your personality. The other thing that comes up, I mean, this you hear a lot, both within the U.S. and outside the U.S., as the U.S. being the land of opportunity. And that is, I fully believe that is true. It absolutely is the land of opportunity. But at the same time, in some ways, that ignores some of the things that happen, those cultural differences when you transfer over, when you move from another country and you come to the U.S. looking for that opportunity, knowing that it's there for you. You still do run against those headwinds, right?
Yes.
Because you were born somewhere else. The culture is different. The politics is different. The government is different. And so all of those things are things you're going to have to get used to. But even in spite of all that, I fully believe that the opportunities that are presented inside the U.S. Are some of the best that you'll get anywhere in the world, starting from scratch. I mean, you can literally do anything, and there's so many examples of so many people coming here and doing great things. It doesn't just need to be money. It's
Yes.
doing what you believe, whatever you think of as success. There are lots of different things that could be defined as success in different people's playbooks.
Correct. Um, that lead me to tell us about E-Playbook.
So the E-Playbooks is another company that I started, and it started sort of the same way I started other companies. I saw a need, or I stumbled onto something, and I saw, oh, geez, this is some place where you can actually, there's a problem that you're fixing. The way I sort of think about everything is that way. That's what I mean. By and large, almost always. I mean, even the story I told you with my dad, right? I saw a problem. I was trying to help someone, and so that's how the business came to be. Same thing here. What had happened was people would come to me with different business problems. Family, friends of friends, those kinds of people. And then it grew from there, where they would come and say, "Hey, I heard you fix this, or I heard you face this kind of a problem. Can you help me?" And out of that grew this sort of mentorship group that I had, where people would come to me and they would say, "Hey, I have a problem with my business. Can you help me with this?" So I had all these people that I was helping. And so from there, after a number of them, I developed a system, or at least a way of actually categorizing these things, the problems that I saw that small and medium-sized businesses had. And then once that happened, just the way my mind works, I thought, this is one, I'm getting some really good business ventures out of them. I like the concept of someone having developed expertise in, for example, developing a product and then coming to me for the business side of it, of whatever help I can give. That partnership I really love, because it doesn't require me to go and find the product or develop expertise in every single aspect of something. I can work with someone who has some expertise and then bring in whatever I can contribute to it. So I like that concept of getting, doing business. And then, also you've seen that in other places where people do that. There are different companies that actually do that. And then I thought, well, I want to formalize it, partially because the fact that when it was this mentorship thing, it was largely disorganized, and I wanted it actually organized. I wanted a system. I developed tools. I wanted to put it into a system. And so I said, okay, I'm going to make this into a business. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with one of these areas that I've identified as common problems. Whenever people would come to me, I had 3 buckets I would put them in. I would take one of those buckets and I would start working with companies in that one bucket and then grow from there. And once I formalized that, what happened was I was able to actually help more people. I was able to work on more different kinds of businesses, and then and also develop better tools. The things that I had identified and I was working, and the team that I was pulling from different businesses that I had to help me with these people that I was mentoring, I now put together in a formalized payroll and a formalized system, and we kept doing it better and developing more and more details into what we're doing. And then so that's where E-Playbooks came to be.
And look, but for being more with the audience, what is the E-Playbooks, what problem the E-Playbooks resolve?
Good question, and I probably didn't answer it very well in going through all that explanation I just did. So what we do is we identify different businesses, small and medium-sized businesses. We start working with them in one of those buckets that I've identified, and specifically sales channels. So we start working in a single sales channel. And what we do in that process is, 1, look at the catalog of the small business that we're working with. 2, understand the founders or the leadership team, how they are, what their vision is, what their skill sets are. Understand also how the market responds to that product catalog, that initial product catalog. Come up with ways that catalog can be expanded and can be scaled. And then work with the business in order to do that, in order to essentially grow their business.
And this is all retail companies? This is just e-commerce? This is Amazon? What is the market?
We concentrate on e-commerce, and a lot of times that beginning place ends up being Amazon, mostly because in the US market, Amazon has such a large share that even if you're going to rule it out, you're at least going to have to consider it. So we don't always start with Amazon. For some businesses, it doesn't make sense to do that, but it ends up being very commonly starting with Amazon just because of that dynamic.
Yeah. And there is a lot of questions that come with the audience is, how do you see the trends in Amazon, especially with all this noise about tariff, about China, our audience have a lot of questions about, is this the right way for Latin America to step in to take advantage of this? What do you think about these trends?
As I said, it's not every single time Everything has exceptions. But Amazon is, in my opinion, a very good place to start. And I'll explain to you why. And again, I'm specifically looking at selling within the US, okay? Tariffs are tariffs. Unfortunately, in my opinion, one of the biggest problems with tariffs is the lack of certainty. If you know the tariffs on something is going to be X or Y, at least you can sit there and analyze it. But when they change day to day, today there's going to be tariffs on that, tomorrow it's not going to be, when we're doing that, that's instability that right now happens, or at least has happened even more frequently before. Now it's maybe a little bit more stable, but that instability of not knowing what exactly, whether there's going to be a tariff, what exactly it's going to be, how it's going to be assessed, all of those things, that to me is one of the biggest problems in terms of running a business, because you can't plan. Okay, and planning is one of the most important things you do in a business. But the existence of tariffs to me does not change the dynamic of what sales channel I start with, at least with the companies that I work with. Because those tariffs are going to be there whether or not you're selling on Amazon, off your website, or anywhere else. Those products are going to have to come into the country some way before you sell them, and that's when a lot of times you're dealing with the tariffs. So in that way, that doesn't change the way I think. Again, there are exceptions. Somebody will always come and say, but wait, there's this thing that happens that with my particular products or my particular catalog. I fully admit that whatever you say, there's going to be exceptions to. That's just fact of life. But I'm talking in generalities. In terms of Amazon, is it the best place to be in? Yes and no, right? One is the issue of, okay, well, how do I sell my products? I want to sell it off my website, and I'll save the money that Amazon charges me for those referral fees it does, or whatever, and that way I'll sell on my website. Everything's a gift and a curse. Yes, you don't have that referral fee if you sell off of your website, but how do you get that traffic, that consumer, the intent that the Amazon consumer has? Because when people get on Amazon, they have a different intent than when they get on Google or when they get on Meta. Their intent when they get on Amazon is actually to shop. They have a much higher propensity to actually shop for something. Two, they trust the system, for better or worse, right? They believe that if they order something on Amazon, it'll actually get there, and it'll get there on time. Yes, there are exceptions. Yes, it's not perfect, all of those things, but there's a trust factor in Amazon versus just going to a website of a brand you don't know. They tend to trust that very same brand more when they see it on Amazon than when they do on the brand's own website. That's just true. Again, I'm talking about small and medium-sized businesses, brands that aren't household names. They're not Apple's, and they're not GE, and they're not, right? And so the same brand gets more trust sitting on an Amazon than it does on its own website. In fact, a lot of times when you run marketing campaigns, or for example, if a product is featured on some show, or on some place where there's for example, the Today Show or something like that, the consumers that go to that see that don't necessarily go to the website. They go to Amazon and search for that product. Okay, so there's that trust factor there. And those things, among a number of other things, make it make Amazon a lot more attractive than some of the other channels that are there, including your own website. Okay, that does not mean you don't have a website. You absolutely should have a website for your brand. But being on Amazon and concentrating on selling on Amazon and putting some budget in there is also important because there are a lot of different advantages over there that you don't necessarily have on your website. There's a whole list of others that I could go through that maybe time doesn't allow. But that's the reason I sort of say, hey, let's at least look at Amazon. Number two, most probably, let's concentrate on it, and then from there expand to other places. And again, here we're talking about small and medium-sized businesses with pretty limited budgets, where you can't just be omni-channel from day one. You don't have $1 billion to spend on marketing. Okay, so that's the way that I look at it.
Great. That takes me to, so how do you target in your B2B marketing? How do you get customers?
We don't do a whole lot of marketing for E-Playbooks. A lot of it because it grew out of what I told you, like that I already had a group of companies that I was working with, just because it happened that way. And also because our concept is different. We're not in the business of accumulating contracts. We're in the business of creating long-term relationships. And our leadership team, including myself, work with every single one of the companies that we actually directly work with them. It's not like we sit there and we just have a system that we just run through and we have a whole, we have some low-level employee that runs through it. Yeah. We're actually working with the businesses to make them grow. So yes, we have a whole team from clerks up to people who are C-level people that actually consider what exactly is going on and look at the scaling and the expansion of the business we're working with. So we have a limited number of spaces that we can fill, basically. And so in terms of marketing and seeing them, a lot of times they come across on LinkedIn. Either somebody from my team contacts them or they contact us. And that's how we get to meet different business owners, or they reach out to us through our website. That's another way we get to reach. We get to meet the companies that we work with. We don't really have that much marketing past that.
Perfect. And in terms of perspective, how do you see E-Playbooks, and how do you think it will be the market in terms of next year?
The funny thing is, I actually tell clients this, they'll hear this. My concept in coming up with E-Playbooks was one thing, and it's sort of, as a lot of businesses do, it's sort of morphed into something a little bit different, and something I like actually more than what I was envisioning when I first started. So what I was envisioning was this thing where I get to work with these companies, and then we kind of get into the business more and become partners in the business. What ended up happening is, yes, we're doing that for sure, but we also have a whole slew of companies that we're helping in a little bit more of a micro scale than I thought, that I had originally envisioned. I had envisioned a deeper involvement, but we have now a spectrum of them where there's some of them that need specific kinds of help that we help with, and then that's the entire relationship, and it continues. I mean, it's still a long-term relationship, but it's in a very specific way. And then we have other ones that we have deep relationships with, where we're doing a whole lot of different things together. And so in that way, I enjoy it a lot more. It's different from what I envisioned it would be. It's much more robust than I thought in terms of a company. I have a much larger payroll than I was planning on having. Everything's a gift and a curse. I love the people I work with. So
Yeah.
yes, it's an expense, but I love doing it. So that part is great. And then what I'm envisioning is actually expanding exactly what we're doing. I'm loving doing this. So I want to bring more people like myself into our company so that we can actually expand the number of companies that we're working with. So more at the upper levels is where I'm looking at actually bringing in and hiring. And building out larger teams and getting into some other areas, getting like larger teams in terms of logistics, building out those kinds of things, looking at a lot deeper in multi-channel and omni-channel presences, because some of our clients are starting to grow. Today, this morning, one of my clients said, hey, when are we gonna expand to more channels, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a lot more of that now. So I want to keep pushing into those teams and really helping out that way. So I see a lot more expansion in those things. I see a lot more expansion industry-wide at a macro level in terms of what e-commerce is and what it's becoming. It's becoming a lot more complex. There are a lot more opportunities, but it's a lot more complex than it used to be. So I feel like there's a lot more need for what we're doing as we go along. But it has to be something robust. It's not just a question of, I believe that the involvement that we are going to have is going to be a lot more robust than it has been when we started.
So for you as entrepreneur, what is the thing? What is the core metric you look at when you want to grow your company? What is the metric that you focus on? And for you, when you say, okay, now I'm scaling, I think there is a different sensation when you're an entrepreneur. One thing is what the company you're looking for when you say, okay, the company is good. And one thing is when you're an entrepreneur, okay, I'm going to make the right move. You look at different things.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I'm much more of a generalist than maybe a lot of people you talk to. Obviously, I look at specific metrics. I get all of those things that people normally get. When we're looking at marketing, I look at marketing campaigns. I see exactly what the returns are, exactly what we're spending versus not. Depending on what we're doing. The way I actually evaluate also is how many companies are we actually talking to? Has that rate increased, whether we take them on or not? Has the rate increased? What exactly are the problems we're seeing? Are we seeing more of the things that we're looking to see? So it's kind of funny because I have my own metrics for how this business is developing and may be totally different from what other people look at. Okay, so just bear with me because
that's the interesting thing. That's the interesting thing. You tell me, this is really interesting.
I mean, I see. Yes, there's the accounting part. And everyone does that. I look at what is the trends. What am I looking at in terms of trends, in terms of what this business is going to do? And what I look at is, okay, who's coming to us? What exactly are the problems? And what are we seeing in terms of the need to solve those problems to the extent we want to be involved with them? Are we seeing new problems that we want to solve? Are we seeing with the current clients that we have new needs or new things that we can service? What are all of those things? And we have categories of all of those things that we have listed. And so, that goes into exactly what I was telling you, where we're hiring, what kind of program we're running, whether we bring more people like me into the fold so that we can have more on the upper side, which is what I told you we would want to. And that's because what we're seeing is a lot more of those companies come to us with the problems that I mentioned. Plus, we're seeing a more desire for a more robust engagement across multiple channels. And so that would require more on the management side for us. That's which is what I described to you, and that's sort of the way I begin to look at. Okay, what are we going to be doing next year? What are we going to be doing in 2 years? What's our 3-year thought? Is the way I see those trends working. I also, on the other side, by the way, look at exactly how the consumers are working. Where are we finding them? Where are we seeing different things? What kind of behavior are we seeing? Are we seeing more over here, more over there? What kind of engagement do they have? What are they looking for? How are they changing? How are their habits changing? And those things are affected by many, many things. So it's very difficult to predict as you go out into, like, once you even hit 3 years, which is not that long. It's very hard to predict those behaviors. I also try to look at exactly where the sales platforms are going, what there is currently, what they're doing, what the cost structure is, what the profit structure is going to be, and then what else is on the horizon, what is coming, in what direction are they going, and try to sort of predict those things, and that put all of those things together, and then you have some sort of planning, which, as with any planning, is subject to alteration as time goes on.
Yes, correct. And my last question will be, Shawn, how is your mindset? What you can tell to our audience about your mindset as an entrepreneur? How you think, how you visualize things?
I'm not sure if I'm going to answer your question the way you want it answered, and if I'm not, tell me, and I will adjust. But my wife always seems like a complete Debbie Downer to me. I tend to be the eternal optimist. I think that as an entrepreneur, one of the personality is a rosy picture that you see, for right or wrong. Okay, you could be wrong, you could be overly optimistic, things can go not as planned, but you kind of have this, and it's the way I think. I have a mentality that there's a lot of things out there that can happen, a lot of them that can go right, and there are a lot of opportunities. I don't have much of a scarcity mentality. I look at as there being infinite possibilities. And I see that, because I mentioned my wife, not because she's this, all the time down or anything like that. She's actually a very happy person. But when it comes to predicting things in the future of business or things like that, she tends to be what she would call more realistic. I call it more pessimistic, right? And there's degrees of that, right? At some point you're being realistic, at some point you're being pessimistic, at some point on the other direction, it's a spectrum. You're being overly optimistic and you're not being realistic, right? So I tend to be over here on the optimist, realist, overly optimist side, and she tends to be on the other side. And so in terms of mentality, generally, that's the way I think. And I'm always looking for different opportunities. I always see I'm constantly looking for trends, constantly looking for different problems that we can fix, right? Whether it's in E-Playbooks or another entity that I'm running, that's just the way I think. And I also think part of being an entrepreneur, and what sort of, I believe, what sort of turns people off of it is the constant barrage of problems, okay? And it absolutely is that. If you're running a company, there's a constant barrage of problems coming your way. It's just like an avalanche constantly, right? I view my role in any company that I run as a problem solver. That is my role. My role, I don't have an existence inside of that company unless I was solving problems. So, it does not tend to affect me as much as it would somebody else, mostly because I just think, that's the job. If you want to run a company, if you want to be the leader of a company, if you want to start your own business, your primary job is problem solving. That's it. Problem solving. Okay, morning till night. And by the way, if you don't see a problem in front of you, you're probably not looking hard enough. So another part of your job is looking for problems to solve. Not just problems that are coming like an avalanche, like I mentioned, but problems that you're looking for, and you're sitting there going, okay, where is there a problem I need to solve, and inserting yourself in there. So that is part of running a company. It's part of how to start a company too, right? Knowing a problem and wanting to solve it. But when you start the company, that's all you do. You do it. You have that initial problem that's why you started the company. You've identified a problem and you're trying to solve it. But then your company itself has a problem, and has many of them. And so your job is constantly to do.
Well, thank you so much for your time,
Anytime.
for sharing these thoughts with us, for sharing these insights. I don't know if you want to say anything else to you want to give us a message to our audience?
Yeah, keep doing what you're doing, and keep starting new businesses, and understand that there's all kinds of risk involved. Everyone's in the same boat. We all go through that. Whether you see someone who's hugely successful or someone who's struggling, they all went through those same problems that you're seeing in front of you when you're running a business. You're not alone. There's plenty of ways to get help. I'm a person you can call. I always tell people we don't have to have a contract or a relationship to do that. People contact me all the time. They email me all the time. And so reach out, talk to those people, because I guarantee you, whatever problem you're having, other people have had too. It may look lonely, it may look like you're hopeless at times, but knowing that there are other people that have had those same problems and have faced them, just knowing that is sometimes fuel enough to move forward. So, know that and do that. To talk further, I'm here with anything you need.
Thank you very much, Shawn.
All right, then.
I appreciate it.
Bye.